Hello my friends. It's been about 2 months since I published my last video. I've been busy, but I kinda like just posting every once in a while. So I returned today with a new video where I take a deeper dive into FNAF World. I spent hours unlocking every character, besides Halloween update characters, because I really didn't want to have to play this again.
Oh, go to hell. Go to hell. Shut up. What? What? Excuse me? No, stop. What? Stop, I just want to play the game!
Welcome to my happy fun Rainbow Land.
I doubt many people still play FNAF World. I doubt that many of them even care about which characters are better than others. Most people who still play at this point probably care more about which characters they like. However, I still wanted to make this video specifically because behind all the cuteness, there is a level of strategy to this game. But by level, I mean a basic system where you can unlock characters from different games. There's 40 characters, minus Halloween characters, that you can obtain. And of those 40, you can only have 8 in your party. Well, technically 8. A system in this game is that you have 2 parties of 4, and you can switch between them throughout the battle freely. Anyway, let us begin. They are ranked and tiered on viability throughout the game. Most of the ranking is based off their moves, as while there is a base health, there's absolutely no level cap, thus there's infinite health. So let's dive right in with F tier. The 40th ranked character, in my personal opinion of the worst character in the game, is going to have to go to Toy Freddy. Even though he has one of the coolest camera shots in the entire franchise, in my opinion of course, he's pretty much useless. Mic Toss is a weak attacking move, Party Favors is useless if you even have a semi-competent healer on your team. It'll be fine even if you don't, because healing is pretty much useless in this game, but I'll get to that in a minute. Toy Freddy's only somewhat useful move is Speed Song, which lasts longer than Birthday. However, considering one of the earliest chips in the game you can get is the Endless Speed chip, this also becomes useless. So yeah, Toy Freddy's the worst character in the game. His regular counterpart is better than him. Speaking of his counterpart, the 39th ranked character in my opinion is going to the title character of the whole series. FNAF 1 is obviously the best game, but they don't have the best characters unfortunately. Freddy is pretty damn useless in this game. Pizza Wheel is his best attack, but it's really only effective against swarms of enemies. Like I said with Toy Freddy, Mic Toss is weak. There's basically no time you should use it over Pizza Wheel. His last move is Birthday, which is kind of a weird move to me. It lasts way shorter than Speed Song, but buffs speed, attack, and defense for a little bit. Usually enough for each party member to get a turn while buffed. Freddy absolutely falters even in early game because he's not a good attacker and his buffing is very basic. Another character from FNAF 1 is the original Chica. She's branded as the healer of the group, but here's the part of the video where I explain why healing is absolutely useless in this game. For maybe the first boss fight it's useful, but once you get the extra life chip it's way better to add extra firepower instead of healers. Especially since later on there are characters you can literally revive and give party members extra lives, healing is basically a non-factor. So why is Chica above the Freddys? Well, her usability definitely dwindles after the first few boss fights, but in that time period she definitely contributes more to the party than either of them. However, this slight window of viability doesn't let her escape the F tier. Just beating out F tier is Mangle, who is a unique character in the game because of a few moves they have. In particular, their most polarizing move has to be Poppers. It really only works early game, and there's only one other character in the game who has it, JJ. Basically, how it works is that when you've put down enough poppers, they blow up and do high damage to enemies. Problem with it is that it takes up valuable turns and the damage isn't that high late game. I only really suggest using poppers if you have JJ on the team as well, in which it's quicker to detonate since you'll have 2 party members you can send them out. A nice alternative is Prize Ball, which basically will do a random low tier attack. These can range from Cupcake to Pizza Wheel. It's unreliable, but if you get good luck, it becomes Mangle's best move. Rounding out their attacks is Hook, which is a low damaging attack like Mic Toss. Not a horrible character, but overall it would probably be F tier if not for having some utility early game as a partner for JJ. Back in the day, I always used to think Bonnie was probably the most advanced starting character, but after giving this game a replay, I now think there's probably 3 starting characters who are better than him. On paper, he sounds pretty good. Bash Jam does medium damage, in early game at least, to all enemies, and Happy Jam heal. It actually heals more than Cupcake, outclassing both Chica and Toy Chica's healers right off the bat. But like I said earlier, healing barely matters, and it's better to use Chica as a healer because it's a bit ridiculous to have 2 healers in your party, considering Chica has no attacking moves besides Party Favors. As an attacker, he's outclassed by Toy Bonnie, who has more versatility than him, so Bonnie is pretty much abandoned in no man's land between being an attacker and a healer, which is why he has such a low spot. Outclassing the original model is Toy Bonnie, who I prefer over Bonnie. They both have Bash Jam, but where Toy Bonnie becomes a better damager than Bonnie is with the move Munchie. It's basically a damage over time attack, and I believe overall it does more damage than Bash Jam, especially if there's an attack buff on the team since it hits multiple times. If that's not good enough, Toy Bonnie also has Prize Ball in case of emergency. Overall, Toy Bonnie is a nice beginning attacker, but none of his moves really have the potential to compete with anyone coming in front of him. I feel like this is my most controversial pick so far. Toy Chica is regarded as probably the best starter character by mostly everyone out there, so why do I have her below one of them? Her best move is Water Hose, which kills enemies with lower than 30% of her health. Powerful move, yes, but it doesn't work against bosses. Birthday is a decent move, but it only lasts for a turn, and Cupcake is only really useful for a small portion of the game. I don't think she deserves to be over the next character just because Water Hose is powerful, but I gave her the spot of 34th just because of how busted Water Hose is at the beginning of the game. Like legitimately, every battle just ends up shorter because you can Water Hose everything to death. Unsurprisingly, the bottom 8 characters have all been starter characters. Foxy is the best of these, and probably could be higher if it just had a better attacking move than Hook. He finishes above the rest of the starters because of his helpful stun move Jump Scare, and of course the boss shredding move Hot Cheese. Hot Cheese is absolutely great early game, and it's so fun to use in battles that I ended up bringing Foxy into fights far more than the other 7 characters before him on this list, and even more than a few characters after him on this list. Overall, Foxy's a fun character, but Hot Cheese is eventually outclassed, better characters have Jump Scare, and he's not too heavy hitting. Our first non-starter character, I debated putting Balloon Boy below Foxy, but I decided he was probably better in the long run. BB has Munchies and Hot Cheese, which are both great, but also has Balloon, which I personally think is a pretty good move. It's basically a randomizer, and it shoots out a few balloons that can do as little as 1 damage up to 100, but since it's sending out a few, it still does quite a bit of damage unless you have literally horrible luck. Withered Freddy was one of my most played characters throughout my character hunting in late game, which means I can put him here without any qualms. While the other Withered animatronics are pretty average characters, Freddy's variant is in the bottom 10 because of his complete lack of damaging moves. Mike Toss is super low damage, Gloom Song is a status-based move, and Escape Key is an instant killer. This all makes him borderline unusable against bosses besides being able to nerf their attack. And if you really care about nerfing their attack, there are other characters. Escape Key is useful for character farming and if you encounter a large group of enemies, but in most other cases, Unscrew is a better instant kill move because it has a higher chance to kill. So all in all, not much to this character. JJ is a pretty decent character to get early on. Unscrew, Poppers, and Balloons are all decent moves. In fact, she opens up a whole early game strategy with using JJ and Mangle in the same party to spam Poppers. JJ will probably be your first character with an insta-kill move, but overall her versatility isn't too good because Poppers is worse without Mangle. Unscrew only works in regular battles, meaning Balloons will be her only reliable move if she's used without Mangle in a boss battle. Phantom Mangle is a mixed bag for me. Toxic Bite isn't too good past a certain point, so X out that move. Pizza Wheel 2 is solid, but Mystery Box is a move that basically swaps out all 8 of your characters for random ones. Well, low tier ones, as opposed to its variant, Mystery Box 2. Overall, I don't like relying on RNG, so I never use that move. Phantom Mangle isn't too bad because of Pizza Wheel 2, but besides that, they're definitely replaceable. Phantom Foxy is marginally better than Phantom Mangle, which is why there's a tier difference. He's more useful than Phantom Mangle in a battle, as instead of just being the second tier damager that Phantom Mangle tops at, he can stun them with Jump Scare, which is more useful than you would think for some battles, but it's not as good as Sludge. In regular battles, he can stun and insta-kill with Unscrew. However, he isn't good enough to hang around with the rest of the guys on the list because he doesn't have a super good damaging move or a buff/debuff move. Phantom Chica is pretty much exactly like Phantom Foxy, but with the extra utility of having Sludge instead of Jump Scare. Now I prefer Jump Scare for regular overworld battles because those are usually much shorter, but in boss battles Sludge is much better because it lasts a few turns and it slows down the boss's attacks. Other than that, Phantom Chica plays nearly the same way as Phantom Foxy. Just a quick note for these two, if you're planning to use one, you cannot use them as the primary or secondary attacker in boss battles, since both of their only attacking moves are Toxic Bite. Phantom Marionette is a pretty balanced character, and the usability for him goes way up if you get him early in the game. Jump Scare is a decent move, and Hot Cheese 2 is basically an upgraded version of Hot Cheese. The move I want to talk about is Mystery Box 2, since it's really interesting to me. Like I said, I'm not too keen on the first Mystery Box, but Mystery Box 2 is a pretty decent move, at least in early game. It swaps out your characters, but now you can get high tiers like Nightmare Animatronic. However, this move becomes predictably useless when you get to the point where you can actually get those characters. Jumpscare and Hot Cheese 2 are decent, but altogether, Phantom Marionette just has a cap at a certain point. So immediately looking at her moves, Withered Chica looks pretty horrible. Bite is pretty bad, and like I mentioned earlier, Cupcake becomes pretty useless sooner or later. So why is she so high up? Well, Withered Chica has the benefit of Prize Ball 2, which randomly performs one of the best attacks in the game. It's pretty overpowered if you get her early on. However, just like Mystery Box 2, its usefulness fades as the game goes on. It gets slight bonus points for still occasionally getting good moves, even in late game, but its RNG doesn't help its case. Withered Chica would be higher up if she had better moves to support Prize Ball 2, but she doesn't, so she gets this spot. Okay, time for some slight discretion. Phantom BB is probably a top 20 character in hard mode, because debuffing moves are so much better in that mode than regular. However, if you didn't know, I was ranking this tier list based on regular mode. With that being said, Phantom BB is still the second best Phantom animatronic in the game. Gloom Balloon and Rainy Day are both pretty good moves, and in all honesty, Toxic Balloon isn't too bad either. My problem with this character is that there's really no reason to use him over Phantom Freddy unless you really value poison damage over debuffing opponent's speed, which I do not. Withered Foxy is one decent damaging a move away from not being in D tier. Hot Cheese 2 is great, Rainy Day is pretty good, a defensive debuff on the opponents is useful. However, Hook really holds him back. If he had a move that did decent damage, he would be pretty capable later on. I decided to put him this far up because of Rainy Day and Hot Cheese 2, which managed to make him a somewhat decent supporting character. Marionette escapes the D tier because he's a pretty competent character in the early to mid game. However, he sags hard later on and isn't too great against bosses. Escape Key and Prize Ball 2 make him one of the best characters to get early on in regular battles, but Mystery Box doesn't help him too much, and in boss battles, his really only useful move is Prize Ball 2. He gets the advantage over Withered Chica, who also has Prize Ball 2, just because of Escape Key. Like I said with Phantom BB, in hard mode this character would be borderline top 15. He gets the hard edge over Phantom BB because of having Sludge instead of Toxic Balloon. However, like I said with Phantom BB, debuffing moves aren't as good as they are in hard mode. Most of the time there are characters who both have debuffing moves and attacking moves, making Phantom Freddy pretty unneeded after a while. However, he gets this ranking right below the top half of the characters in the game because of how essential he is to the first few bosses and a decent late game status. Congratulations if you made it this far, because we're now at the top half of characters. Withered Bonnie is the first character here, and overall is one of the more balanced characters in the game. Unscrew 2 is a great insta-kill move, netting him some late game utility. Also great is I-Beam, which does around 100 damage and has a chance to crit for 1000 damage. Sounds busted, right? His only problem is that he's not great against bosses, as his best damaging attack is I-Beam, which becomes outclassed pretty quickly. However, he's pretty good otherwise, and definitely worth bringing all the way probably up to the Funhouse area. The essential insta-kill character, I wanted to put him higher on the list just for fun factor, but his total non-presence against bosses makes him pretty impossible to put him any higher. While in regular battles, he's the king of instant killing. He also has Water Hose, so he really is pretty good for regular battles. He literally cannot impact a boss battle, besides this guy who randomly died to Unscrew once. Anyway, I put him over Withered Bonnie and a bunch of other characters just for his usefulness in regular battles. Kind of consider this character a slightly more viable version of Phantom Freddy. Basically, Golden Freddy doesn't have attack debuffing and speed debuffing moves like Phantom Freddy, but instead has Rainy Day 2, which lowers the opponent's damage and does some damage. Jump Scare is a pretty decent move, but its true utility comes from the move Haunting, which can turn enemies into solid stone. Now, I thought at first that this move didn't affect bosses, but apparently it does and just doesn't play the animation, which is odd. Golden Freddy is a pretty solid supporting character. Unfortunately, Nightmare Freddy isn't good enough to avoid C tier. He manages to just be a semi-decent damager, but it's pretty unremarkable. Freddles does a lot of damage, but there's a chip that just sends endless Freddles at the enemies. Bite 2 does some decent damage, but it's lower than Mega Bite, and while Sludge is a nice debuff move, it doesn't compensate for what altogether is not a top tier attacker. I gave him the edge over Golden Freddy because while he's not the best attacker, his damage output isn't horrible, and he's pretty useful before he becomes completely outclassed. And now we're reaching the top characters. All of these characters are extremely viable. Endoplush is the worst of these, but altogether isn't too bad. He's pretty much a better version of Withered Bonnie. Quick note, Neon Wall is a pretty good move, but since it's near mandatory to get the auto shield chip, which is just the permanent shield provided by the Neon Wall move, it's kinda useless. Water Hose 2 is an extremely powerful move in regular battles, as it's confirmed kill for enemies with less than 50% health, which I somewhat prefer to Withered Bonnie Unscrew 2, which always just has a 50% chance to kill. Unfortunately, Endoplush also suffers from the same problems as Withered Bonnie, just being completely useless in boss battles. This and the next pick were extremely interchangeable, but I decided to slot Nightmare Bonnie behind them for now. Nightmare Bonnie is a good character and has some somewhat decent boss utility. Rainy Day 2 is good, Bite 2 does some okay damage, and Pizza Wheel 2 is a solid move once you level Nightmare Bonnie up. However, while the buffing move is useful, having a better attacking move or a true game-changing move such as Mimic Ball is nearly essential to be higher up on this list. However, he's a decent attacker slash debuff combo character. What a weird, yet enjoyable to use character. This is the character to use for those who really liked Hot Cheese 2 with Phantom Marionette earlier, because Nightmare Foxy is the best character with Hot Cheese 2. His moves are rounded out with a Bite 2 and Unscrew 2, one of which does some damage and the other of which has a 50% chance to kill an enemy. However, while spamming Hot Cheese is fun, at this point in the rankings, if they don't have a super high damaging move, super good buffs, or life regeneration, there's a severe limit to where they can go, which is why Nightmare Foxy finishes as the 4th best Nightmare animatronic. Paperpals is a unique character, but is unreliable at times. First things first, by the time you get Paperpals, you'll probably have good characters, so Mystery Box 2 is useless. Its best move has got to be Mimic Ball, which summons this little dude who will copy all the moves that you do. It's just as busted as it sounds. Now there is a chip for a permanent Mimic Ball, but if you have a character who can use it, it's pretty unneeded. I know I could have said that for Nightmare Freddy 2, but the difference is that the Freddles only last a turn, while Mimic Ball lasts a couple. Prize Ball 2 is an RNG move, but still decent. Paperpals ranks this high pretty much only because of Mimic Ball, but if they had a somewhat competent damaging move, I could see them in the top 10. Looking at his moves, Nightmare Fredbear seems like a top 8 character, no qualms. However, when you really look at him, his only function is an attacker, and while he's good at it, he's not top tier. Freddles, like I said, is essentially useless considering there's a chip that sprays them out. Mega Bite is a pretty good move, and while Toxic Bite 2 is useful, altogether both of them don't hit as hard as Spring Locks or Cosmic Jam. I will mention that before the Halloween update, Freddles was replaced by Bad Pizza, which does more damage than both of his bite moves. It would have probably slid him up a few placements. And now we're reaching the best of the best. Literally any of these characters could be on your first party reasonably. Unfortunately, Plushtrap falls to the bottom of the A tier despite being a really good attacker. Toxic Bite is useless at this point of the game if you get him, and the poison effect doesn't even matter because Bad Pizza also poisons the enemies. If you're curious, Bad Pizza is the move that completely makes this character. It does about 500 to 600 damage to all enemies and poisons them, which is pretty great. Sludge is a useful debuff move, and that's pretty much everything to say about Plushtrap. Our last Chica rep and only slight upgrade over Plushtrap, Bad Pizza is still her primary attacking move, but she has Bite 2 and Water Hose to her arsenal, which makes her better than Plushtrap. Water Hose is great to have in regular battles, but doesn't work against bosses unfortunately. Points are docked for not having a status move, but I think Water Hose and Bite 2 as an alternative attacking move still makes her better than Plushtrap. Endo 2 is a great character to use in your party usually. His issue is that one of his moves is Neon Wall, and Auto Shield already has that covered. Other than that, he's solid. Endo Army is one of the best moves in the game. It sets up 3 Endoskeletons that fire beams at the opponents. They do the same damage as I-Beam and can crit like them. Speed Song is pretty solid, because at the time you get this character it's doubtful you'll be using the Speed Boost chip anymore. Overall good, but not as good as the other Endo. And congrats, we've reached the top 8 characters. That means if you're just going by this list, all 8 of these characters will be on your first and second parties. Anyway, we start that off with Endo 1, who finishes over Endo 2. Specifically because of his buffing move. Attack buffing and defense buffing is really good, especially when partnered with Endo Army. Overall, a really good character to use. It might even be better in the first party so that you can buff defense and attack for your more powerful characters, but to be honest, I wouldn't do it. The best Nightmare character is appropriately named Nightmare. Basically the same thing as Nightmare Fredbear, but with a legitimately good status effect move that can also do some decent damage when attack is buffed. Mega Bite 2 is good, Toxic Bite 2 is good, altogether a solid character for second party damager and debuffer. Wow, Fredbear is such a great character in this game. Mega Bite is good and all, but like I said earlier with Paperpals, Mimic Ball is absolutely busted. Mimic Ball being stuck onto a character with a legitimate damaging move instead of RNG is even more busted. Being as there's only 3 characters in the game with Mimic Ball, he functions as another source for it. Well, besides the chip of course, but I didn't use it in my playthrough, and honestly, if you have a character with Mimic Ball, it's unneeded. This makes him practically essential to the team. However, I decided to put him at the top of A tier and right outside the top 5 because I realized his main functionality would be as a second party Mimic Ball spammer and a secondary damager, which isn't bad, but it doesn't make him truly elite. It feels so bad to put one of the coolest characters in the entire franchise on measly 5th place. However, even though he's in 5th, I'd still put him in the first party for reasons I'll explain in a minute. His specialty move is Spring Locks, which is the best attacking move in the game, no question. This is supplemented with Bite 2 and Rainy Day, the latter of the two being pretty important to the character since it'll help the team kill opponents more easy. Definitely my personal favorite character in the game, but I'm not biased, so he goes here. Unfortunately, I couldn't decide between Crying Child and Funtime Foxy for the 3rd spot, so it's a tie, sort of. Slight disclaimer, even though they rank above Springtrap, I wouldn't use these two in the same party because it could become slightly redundant. Funtime Foxy and Crying Child both have the best move in the game, Gift Boxes, which can revive and give teammates an extra life. Yes, it's busted. However, there's an interesting qualm with these two characters, because Funtime Foxy has a healing move and a damaging move, while Crying Child has 2 buffing moves, which are extremely important to have. At the end of the day, it's really up to personal choice which to use, but both is limiting your damage options. It's best to use a combo of Springtrap, one of these characters, and the other 2 on the list to maximize all potential. So what's more important to you, more damage or some buffing? The second best character in this game has got to be RWQ. Just call him Shadow Bonnie because it's reminding me of Alvin. There are a few alarming things about this character, such as the fact that he has no damaging moves. It doesn't matter. He has 2 of the best moves in the game right off the bat. Mimic Ball and Gift Boxes are great. He's the reason Fredbear isn't in the first party. With Mimic Ball, whenever you use Gift Boxes, it will give even a dead teammate an extra life instead of just reviving them, maximizing its power. The reason RWQ isn't higher? Unfortunately, Mimic Ball has a chip that makes it permanent, and while I didn't use it in my playthrough, his existence is enough to leave him at number 2. This character is the primary attacker. Spring Locks and Cosmic Song are both great attacking moves, making this character a near must-have. They're definitely better than Springtrap because Cosmic Song has the potential to do more than Spring Locks when attack is buffed, since it hits multiple times. Happy Jam 2 won't get much use, but it has its purpose. Altogether, a must-have for your party, and the best character in the game besides Halloween characters. Congrats, Spring Bonnie. You're the best character in FNAF World. Well, besides the 8 Halloween characters. Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning into this special fear out, the Hallow-ENO if you will. The main reason I played this game again is because even though it's fundamentally broken, it's one of my first non-Pokemon RPGs, so it holds a special place in my heart. With that being said, this will most likely be the last time I play FNAF World on this channel again. But who knows, if you've made it this far and want to check out some of my other fear hours, check them out with the playlist here. And if you want to support my channel, a subscription is the best way to do it. Thank you all for watching, and please have a nice Halloween.